Welcome to Menon Thoughts, where technology, life, and growth comes together with purpose. I'm Govind Menon, here to walk with you through the challenges of your career and times of healing. Today's video is about not about agile, not about any of those processes and processes. This is more about how to grow in your career. So today I'm picking up on how do I become a software architect in the industry. The most challenging work, apart from being an entrepreneur or probably being a CXO, I think the most challenging work, personal opinion, is becoming a software architect. Not just by the title, because it talks about mindset of a person. You have to develop a very strong mindset. You have to have the right skills to architect the application or the solution that you're providing and the values that you have to bring in, right? Why? Because architects are like any other industry. When you talk about, let's say, a house, right? Yes, everybody plays a big role in building a apartment, from the person who is putting every stone in place to even the last person who is painting the house out. But the person who gives that vision to the entire thing is the architect, the civil engineer who is actually giving that design, the concept, understanding the requirement that the people who are going to stay in the house, and then converting into a dream house. So if you look at it as an architect, a civil engineer is able to envision the requirement of the person and able to build the app house in different formats, a 2 BHK, 3 BHK, studio, bungalow, Ambani villa, whatever it is, right? So that's why I believe that architects play a key role, because the usability of the product depends upon them. The success and the failure of the product's value depends upon the architect. So let's explore how you can become an architect and move forward in your career. So let's start with, who is a software architect, or what is this role called software architect? Landscape diagrams, or just puts a framework in place, or says that we will use React in the front end, Node at the back end, or says that we will use Angular and .NET at the back end, or use this database, or we'll use AWS. Not just that, right? They're technical leaders, according to my opinion. Leaders who bridge the difference between vision and execution. How do they do that? They do it by designing scalable systems, understanding business needs, guiding teams through complex scenarios, balance the trade-offs of speed versus quality, innovation versus stability. These are the things that an architect has to cater to. And like I said in the intro, those are the guys who actually bring in value into the product development. Whatever product development is there, those are the guys who are bringing in that value. The value of the usage of the product, the success of the product, the failure of the product rests squarely and firmly on their shoulder. I'm not talking about the delivery part. I'm talking about the usage part. It lies fairly and squarely whether the product will go in production and will it run successfully on the production depends upon the architect. So as you can understand, it's the key role that is there in a software development process, right? Or software development life cycle, if you may. So they are the center pillar where everything else is built around. They are the ones who build that center pillar and are the center pillar around which everything else is built around. So if you take an example of Burj Khalifa, right? I don't know how many people know about this, but any tall building will have a keystone, which is basically the center stone around which everything else is built, right? The key foundation that is there. And the architects are that in any team or any product development team. Now, since we have understood what and who the architects are, that is the pinnacle for most of the software engineers to get to. Some people would say principal engineer, some people would say the VP of engineering and all, but those are different roles that are there. Obviously, above the hierarchy, the CTOs are the pinnacle, probably the CEO is the pinnacle in the software firm, but from a software development point of view, I'm saying, when a project is running, those guys are the pinnacle of that software development role that is there. So a developer, if he wants to stay developer and grow into that role, software architect is the pinnacle of it. Techno manager is above that and all, but software architect is the pinnacle of it, right? Where you 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 still are an individual contributor and you are still the center pillar of everything. Like a principal engineer, both are almost the same roles, but architect comes into play way before principal engineer comes into play. Okay, so how do you become a software architect? You don't become a software architect just like that, or you don't. There are a lot of people who will come in laterally and all, but this is more for people who are getting into the industry. They are starting off their career. How do you evolve into that? That is the target, right? So target audience is that, right? So I would say for the first 0 to 3 years, you are nothing but a code contributor. Your primary focus should be on clean code, unit testing, learn the tech stack. Habits that you might want to follow to become a good software architect is ask why something works, not just how something works. And that will lead you to the next step on becoming an architect when you are a code contributor, the first 0 to 3 years. The next 3 to 5 years, you become what I call as problem solvers. Take ownership of a module, start mentoring juniors, understand system level implications. That is what would make you a problem solver. Now, these problem solvers might have different designations in an organization. I'm not getting into that, but these are focus stages for an engineer. The next step would be system thinkers. System thinkers, normally you will reach that particular stage in 5 to 7 years of your career. You would be designing across modules, not just in your module. Across modules, you will have an influence. You will be looking at the forest instead of the tree, handling performance, handling reliability, handling integration, influencing architectural decisions without a title of being an software architect or even an associate architect. You would be still influencing the architectural decision that happens in 5 to 7 years if you get to that stage. 7 to 10 years is when you get into a tech strategist role, sort of, where you are interfacing with the product team, making technical choices aligned with the business, owning architectural reviews and POCs. You sort of get a title of associate architect, junior architect at this time, and then 10 plus years is when you become an architect or the stage of an architect. Any title for that. You can be called senior architect, you can be called cloud architect, you could be called product architect, whatever you want to call it. But that is the stage when you don't choose the title, but the role chases you to do that, right? I mean, you don't get that title probably, or you don't get to be called a software architect, but the role is what is defining you as a software architect, right? This is when you become a leader who has a vision, who communicates, and has system clarity. System clarity as in the entire system's clarity, right? You might still be doing coding, but you would be that architect who would be actually defining cross-module stuff. You might be taking the architectural decisions, you might be owning architectural reviews, you might be making the tech choices aligned with the business. That is when you are actually an architect. What skills matter most during this time when you are actually becoming an architect is basically you should be able to design at a system level, not at a module level, at a system level. You should be designing by the domain. Your design should be driven by the domain, what domain you are in, and your design should be having a influence of that domain, whichever you're working. Domain as in the vertical, like banking, insurance, manufacturing, e-commerce, whatever it is. Your decisions will be driven by that particular business domain. Continuous integration, continuous deployment, you should be breathing it in and out. As an architect and DevOps, this is something that would be one of the skills that will matter the most. Basic level securities for your APIs. How do you secure those? How do you make, say, a JWT or a OAuth or whichever it is? You should be well aware of those. Communication, of course, with the product owners, the other stakeholders, and stuff like that. Mentoring and negotiating. So there's a very keyword, right? Mentoring the juniors and also negotiating with them. What would be the right way of building it? Because every young engineer who would be there below you, who has completed 6 to 7 years, would start questioning that and saying that, hey, we could have done this way. If they are good engineers, okay, if they are extroverts. So you have to negotiate, you have to discuss with them. You have to make sure they are on board with your architecture and then move forward. These are the primary ones that you need. You don't need to know everything of what I have told just above, right? But you must know how to decide and who to ask the questions. Basically, I mean, with these and plus combinations of it, you should be able to get uh, that skill set also, right? Now we are trying to become an architect. There are few things which are common traps which happens for an architect. People think sometimes that architecture is all about tools like lucid charts or drawy, or there are a lot of others, Mio and stuff like that, right? Where you go and define, you create some cool designs and cool landscape diagrams and all, and then you are an architect. No, you are not. It's a it's a trap that you should avoid. You should do those. I'm not saying you should not, but that is not the end goal of an architect. That is a outcome of what you are doing. Those documentations and all are an outcome. They are not the goal. Okay, avoid hands-on coding as much as possible when you get into an architectural role, right? What happens is, as a architect, this might be contradictory to what I said for a techno manager, just being very clear on that, because as an architect you need to look at the forest, not the tree. So you have to avoid hands-on coding, but that doesn't mean that you should stop hands-on coding. You have to give that direction, right? So you need to know what the technology stack is and how it works. That is the most uh, easiest way to understand what the technology stack is, right? Hands-on coding, but don't get trapped into that. That's the point, right? Skipping documentation. Architects think that they don't have to do a documentation. I've done my diagram and done, and it is done. No, the architect is responsible for everything, from a CI/CD process, the branching strategy, the way you want to actually deploy it on AWS. How do you want to have code review comments, stuff like that. That's part of the architect's definition, to do that documentation and give it to the techno managers or others who can then expand on it. But you have to give that outline for everything. And architects generally, they think that we don't have to think about the business, we just have to think about the technology. So yeah, I mean, it has been given to me like build it and push it onto a microservices or whatever. I'll build it in Java, right? But you have to look at the business context of that and look at whether the, let's say, the example is like, if you go and say that, okay, we will use, I'll give an example from Salesforce, right? I mean, so let's say if you say that, okay, I want to go and use AI bot using Einstein, because my end user asks for a AI bot, that is not the solution, right? I mean, you have to look at, because Einstein, uh, which is part of Salesforce AI bot, is costly. For every transaction that you do, it will charge you, because it's a pass. It's not a SaaS. It's a pass, right? It's a platform, so it'll charge you by the number of records that you're processing. So as an architect, you have to find a shortcut or probably a solution for this, and then look at, hey, does it make really business sense for my end user, right? So that is what I think is everything about an architect. Short video. But if you want me to actually elaborate on any one of the about topics that I had mentioned on the evolution stage, like how to be a good code contributor, how to be a problem solver, how to be a system thinker, how to be a tech strategist, how to be the end result of being, how to be an architect, I just put a comment and I'll make videos on that. And on the skill set, if you want me to put videos on, let's say, how to think about the forest, not just about the tree. How do I learn CIC? How do I design based upon a domain? Or how do I select the best security concepts for my API settings or my application? Do put a comment. I will create a video, or you can go to our community page and then you can put a comment there, and we can pick it up, right? So yeah, the final thoughts from my side: if you're solving bigger problems, mentoring others, and thinking in system level, you're already walking the architect path. That's what I believe. You don't become an architect on a date on a calendar saying that, okay, from this date onwards you become an architect. You evolve into one by building solutions that matters. That is the key for being an architect, right? Okay, that's all from me in this video. This is Menon Thoughts signing off. Until we connect again, keep learning, keep caring.